The space station was alive with noise, with footsteps and chatter echoing in the cold metallic halls. Ships came and went, traders shouted over prices, and guards marched with heavy boots. But in the darkest corner of the docking bay, where no light dared to fall, a thin alien girl bent low to the ground. She was not seen as a person, not even as a beggar. She was like a shadow, forgotten and ignored by all. Her small hands reached toward the cold floor where scraps of food had fallen from careless travelers. The remains of bread, dried vegetables, and greasy bones lay scattered. She picked them up quickly and pressed them to her lips. Her sharp teeth worked silently, her eyes shifting in fear that someone might notice. Most who passed by pretended not to see her. Some looked once and turned their faces away. Some even sneered, whispering, "Like a dog." But the girl did not react. Hunger burned stronger than pride. Her clothes were torn, her skin pale, and her silver hair tangled like threads of wire. Among the crowd was a human soldier, Captain Elias. He had just returned from patrol duty. His armor still carried the scratches of battle. He was tired, his mind heavy with the images of war. But when his eyes fell upon the girl, his steps slowed. Something struck him deep inside. He had seen orphans before, many refugees starving, in war zones, but this girl was different. There was a strange grace even in the way she crouched low to gather crumbs. Her thin fingers moved with a careful elegance, not like a scavenger, but like someone trained long ago to move with dignity. Elias stopped near a merchant's stall, pretending to adjust the strap of his weapon, but truly he was watching her. He saw how she avoided people's gaze, how she hid her face whenever a guard walked past. Yet for a moment, when she lifted her head to take a piece of stale bread to her mouth, he caught a glimpse of her eyes. They were not the eyes of a beggar. They were deep violet, sharp and burning with something hidden. For a heartbeat, Elias thought he saw nobility there, something powerful buried under layers of fear and dirt. The girl froze when she realized he was looking at her. She pressed herself back against the wall like a trapped animal. Her chest rose and fell quickly, as if she expected him to strike her or call a guard. But Elias did not move closer. Instead, he pulled out a ration pack from his belt. He broke the seal, the smell of warm stew escaping, and without a word, he set it down on the floor a few feet away from her. Then he stepped back. The girl's eyes widened. She did not trust easily. Slowly, crawling like she was still afraid of a trap, she moved closer. Her hands shook as she picked up the pack. The warmth of real food spread through her fingers. She sniffed it once, then began to eat faster now. Tears forming in her eyes, Elias watched silently. He felt a strange heaviness in his chest. Why was he even stopping here? He should have kept walking. He should not care. Yet he could not look away. A pair of guards walked by. One of them laughed when he saw her. "Look at that little rat eating off the ground." The other shook his head. Disgusting, worse than animals. Elias clenched his jaw. He wanted to speak, but he forced himself to stay quiet. The guards moved on. Their voices faded, and still the girl ate as if each bite was her last chance to live. When she finally slowed down, her breathing steadied. She looked up at Elias again. For the first time, their eyes truly met. And in that silent exchange, Elias saw something no one else wanted to see. She was not just a starving alien, not just a nameless refugee crawling for scraps. He saw a Duchess. The thought came to him so clear, so strong that he almost said it aloud. His mind resisted, his training told him he was being foolish, but the feeling would not leave him. There was a hidden story in her eyes, a weight of history that could not belong to a simple street orphan. The girl hugged the empty ration pack to her chest. Her lips trembled as if she wanted to speak, but instead, she lowered her head again, hiding her face behind the curtain of silver hair. Elias stood there, his hand tightening on his weapon strap. He did not understand why, but he knew one thing with certainty. This meeting was no accident. And somewhere in the shadows of the station, unseen eyes were watching too. The noise of the station carried on, but for Elias, the world had grown strangely quiet. He stood near the corner where the alien girl sat, her fragile frame pressed against the steel wall. The ration pack he had given her was empty, yet she still clutched it as though it was the most valuable treasure in the galaxy. Elias took a slow breath. His duty was clear. He was a soldier, a guardian of order, not a savior of lost children. He told himself to walk away, but his boots did not move. Something about her stopped him. Something that whispered this girl was more than she appeared. The girl's hands trembled as she licked the last of the stew from her fingers. She looked at him again, her violet eyes glowing faintly under the harsh station lights. There was no gratitude in her gaze, no soft thanks. Instead, there was wariness, suspicion, and a silent question. Why did you feed me? Elias crouched slowly so he was not towering over her. He kept his voice low, careful. You should not eat from the ground, he said. His tone was steady. Food like that will kill you. The girl stiffened. Her lips parted as if she wanted to reply, but no sound came. For a moment, Elias wondered if she could even speak. But then a whisper escaped, rough and dry, like it had not been used in weeks. Better to die than starve. The words cut him sharper than a blade. He stared at her in silence. He had heard many voices on battlefields, cries of pain, rage, despair. But this voice was different, fragile, yet unyielding. Elias reached into his pack again and pulled out another ration. This time he did not place it on the ground. He held it in his hands and opened it. The steam rose once more, carrying the smell of spiced broth and bread. He offered it to her directly. Her eyes widened. She did not take it. Instead, she pressed herself tighter to the wall. Why? She asked in a trembling voice. Why give this to me? Elias tilted his head slightly. Because you're hungry, he answered simply. Her breath hitched. She studied his face as though searching for the hidden cruelty that always followed. Kind words. She had learned that pity was often poisoned. Yet when she found none, her thin fingers slowly stretched out. She touched the edge of the pack, careful like it might vanish. Finally, she pulled it to her lap and began to eat, slower this time. Her hands shook less, and the taste of real food softened her hard expression. She chewed with grace. Her posture, straight despite her weakness, Elias noticed the way she held the spoon. Delicate, precise. Her movements reminded him of the nobility he had once seen in the courts of allied worlds, refined and practiced, not learned on the streets. He narrowed, his eyes watching closely. What's your name? He asked. The girl froze. Her spoon stopped halfway to her lips. She swallowed hard before speaking. Seraphine, she whispered. The name stirred something inside Elias. It was not a common name, not among her kind. It was royal in tone. Almost ceremonial. He frowned but said nothing. Where are your people? He asked instead. Family? Guardians? Seraphine's shoulders tightened, her face turned away. Gone, she said quickly, too quickly. The way she avoided his gaze told him there was more, but she refused to explain. Elias sighed. He was not surprised. Many families had been torn, apart by the war, but her tone carried more than loss, it carried secrecy. Before he could ask more, the sound of boots echoed through the corridor. A group of traders walked by, laughing. One of them saw Seraphine eating from the soldier's ration and smirked. Soldier's got himself a pet, the man jeered. Careful, she might bite. The others laughed harshly. Seraphine flinched, curling into herself. Elias's eyes darkened. He stood up slowly, his full height casting a shadow over the group. His voice was firm, cold. Keep walking. The laughter died at the sharp edge in his tone. The traders muttered but moved on. The moment they were gone, Elias looked back at Seraphine. She had lowered her head, shame painting her cheeks. You are not an animal, he said softly. His voice carried no pity, only truth. Her eyes lifted, filled with confusion. For years, she had been treated as less than nothing. Yet this stranger spoke to her as if she had value, as if he saw something no one else did. You eat with grace, Elias continued. Your name has weight, and your eyes. He paused, shaking his head. Your eyes do not belong to the streets. Seraphine blinked, her lips trembled. For the first time, she almost looked like she might cry. But she forced herself to stay still, swallowing the emotion. You are wrong, she whispered. I am no one. Elias wanted to argue, but the words caught in his throat. He did not know why he cared so much, why he felt certain she was more. But he knew one thing. If others saw what he saw, she would be in danger. From the shadows above the docking bay, a pair of hidden eyes glowed faintly, watching the exchange. A communicator clicked softly, a message sent. The lost Duchess had been found. The space station never slept. Engines hummed, lights flickered, and voices echoed in the long metallic halls. But in the small, forgotten corner near the docking bay, Elias sat on a steel crate, his helmet beside him, watching Seraphine as she finished the last spoonful of the ration. She ate quietly now, no longer like a desperate scavenger. Her back was straighter, her movements precise, and for Elias, every gesture whispered of a life far different from the dirt-stained reality around her. He could not stop the thought. This girl is not what she seems. When she was done, she closed the ration pack carefully, almost as though it were a royal dish. She looked up at him with wary eyes. Why do you keep staring at me? She asked softly. Elias raised a brow. Because you don't belong here. The words made her tense. She hugged her knees, eyes darting away, her voice turned sharp. I told you, I'm no one. No one doesn't carry themselves like that, Elias replied calmly. No one doesn't eat like that, or speak with such weight. Seraphine froze. He had struck something hidden, something she tried hard to bury. For a moment her lips parted, as though she might confess. But then she shook, her head quickly, silver hair falling over her face. You don't know anything about me, she whispered. Elias leaned forward, his tone steady. Then tell me. She was silent. Her violet eyes shone with a storm of emotions, fear, grief, anger. But finally she spoke in a trembling voice. I had a family once, a mother who told me stories of the stars, a father who taught me how to walk with dignity, brothers and sisters who laughed with me in the gardens of our home. Her voice broke. She pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to stop the flood of memory. Elias said nothing, letting her speak. They're gone now, she whispered. All gone. Elias's chest tightened. He had seen the war destroy countless families, but there was a heaviness in her words. It was not just loss, it was exile, betrayal, something deeper. Who took them from you? Elias asked carefully. Seraphine's hands clenched, her nails dug into her palms. Her voice dropped low, barely audible. The Council, Elias frowned. The Galactic Council? That was impossible. Or dangerous. What do you mean? He pressed. She shook her head violently, eyes wide. I should not have said that, she muttered. Forget it. Forget everything. Elias leaned back slowly, but his mind raced. The council was made of rulers, leaders, noble houses from across the stars. If she spoke their name with such venom, then she was connected to them in a way few could imagine. Before he could ask again, a shadow passed across them. A cloaked figure stood at the far end of the corridor, pretending to browse the merchant stalls, but Elias's soldier instincts noticed the way the man's hand hovered near his belt, where a hidden weapon could be strapped. Elias lowered his voice. We're being watched. Seraphine's head jerked up, panic flashing in her eyes. She grabbed his arm suddenly, her grip surprisingly strong. Please, don't let them take me, she whispered desperately. Elias's heart pounded. He could feel the tremble in her touch. This was not just fear of a stranger. It was terror, rooted in memory. The cloaked figure shifted closer. Elias stood quickly, his hand resting on his weapon. His sharp gaze met the stranger's, and for a tense moment, the man froze, realizing the human soldier had marked him. With a low curse, the figure melted. Back into the crowd, disappearing into the flowing sea of bodies, Elias turned back to Seraphine. Who are they? She shook her head again, tears shining in her eyes. Hunters, she whispered. They won't stop until they find me. The words pierced Elias like ice. He crouched beside her, his voice firm. Then you need protection, and I can give you that. But you must tell me the truth. Seraphine bit her lip. Her face was pale, her body trembling. For a long time she said nothing. But then her voice cracked. I was not always like this, she whispered. Once, I wore gowns, woven with light. Once, I dined in halls filled with music. Once, my people bowed when I entered the room. Her tears fell silently onto her hands. Now look at me, she whispered, eating scraps like a dog. Elias's breath caught. He wanted to deny it, but the truth was already laid bare before him. This girl, this broken, starving girl, was no beggar. She was royalty, fallen and hunted. He reached out slowly, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. Seraphine, he said softly. You may have lost your crown, but you have not lost yourself. She looked at him shocked, her violet eyes wide, as if no one had ever spoken to her like that before. But before Elias could say more, a low chime rang through the station speakers. A message spread across the comms. Attention all travelers. A fugitive has been reported in the docking sectors. If seen, report immediately. Reward guaranteed. Elias stiffened. His instincts screamed. This was no coincidence. The timing was too sharp. Seraphine's face drained of color. Her lips trembled. They know, she whispered. They know I'm here. And in that moment, Elias understood. The weight of the choice before him. If he stepped away now, she would be caught. If he stayed, he would be defying powers greater than himself. But one thing was clear. This girl's shadows of the past had just stepped into the present. The announcement echoed through every corner of the station, metallic walls carrying the voice like a ghostly warning. Travelers froze mid-step, merchants looked up from their stalls, and guards shifted nervously at their posts. The words, fugitive, reward guaranteed, traveled fast, and already whispers began to spread. Elias clenched his fists. His soldier's instincts told him this was a trap, not a routine alert. Someone wanted Seraphine found, and quickly. He looked at her. Her face was pale, her violet eyes wide with fear. She pressed herself closer to the wall as if the shadows could swallow her whole. They'll come for me, she whispered. They always come. Elias crouched near her, his voice low and steady. Then we'll make sure they don't find you. Seraphine shook her head violently. You don't understand, she whispered. They aren't after a beggar girl. They're after me. Elias's jaw tightened. He leaned closer. Then tell me who you really are. She hesitated. Her lips trembled. For a long moment, she seemed ready to deny everything, to keep the truth buried. But the weight of the announcement, the danger pressing in from all sides, broke her silence. My name is Seraphine Valora, she whispered. Daughter of House Valora, Duchess of the Aurelian Crown. Elias froze. The words struck him like a thunderbolt. He had heard that name before. All soldiers had. The House of Valora was one of the oldest noble bloodlines of the galaxy, a family said to carry not only wealth but influence enough to sway entire fleets. But the last reports he had heard said House Valora was destroyed during the uprising. The council had declared them traitors, erased their name from the records. If Seraphine was truly their daughter, then she was not only a fugitive, she was the rightful heir of a dead house. He whispered her name again, tasting its weight. Seraphine Valora. Her eyes shimmered with tears. That name means nothing now, she said bitterly. My family is ash, our crown shattered. And she gestured at her torn clothes, her trembling hands. I am nothing but a ghost. Elias shook his head, his voice firm. You are not a ghost. You're alive. And as long as you breathe, your crown still whispers through you. Seraphine looked at him in disbelief. No one had ever spoken of her with such certainty. Everyone else saw her as a relic, a mistake to erase. But this human soldier looked at her and saw something more. Before she could respond, a group of guards marched down the corridor, scanning faces. Their armored boots rang sharply against the steel floor. Voices muttered around them. some pointing, some whispering. The reward was already stirring greed. Elias pulled his cloak from his pack and threw it over Seraphine's shoulders. "Keep your head down, follow me," he murmured. She obeyed, moving close at his side. Together they slipped into the crowded bazaar, blending with the rush of merchants and travelers. The smell of spice, oil, and sweat filled the air. Voices shouted in a dozen languages. Coins clinked, stalls glowed with strange wares. But behind the noise, Elias's trained eyes saw movement. Spies in the crowd, their attention fixed not on goods, but on faces. Their comms flickered as they shared updates. They were searching and their net was closing. Seraphine's hand brushed his arm, trembling. "They'll find me," she whispered. "They always find me." Elias's voice was iron. "Not while I'm here." They turned into a narrow passage between cargo containers. The noise of the bazaar faded, leaving only the hum of machines. Elias stopped, checking the shadows. Then he faced her. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "If you are truly the Duchess of Aurelian Crown, then you carry something worth killing for. What is it?" Seraphine hesitated. Her lips parted, then closed. She looked down at her hands, pale and trembling. Finally, she whispered, "The crown's seal." Elias frowned. "What is that?" She met his eyes, her voice steady despite her fear. "It is a command key, coded in our bloodline. With it, one can summon the loyalty of the Aurelian fleets, ships hidden across the stars, waiting for their rightful leader." Elias's breath caught. He had heard stories of ancient royal fleets, vessels kept in secret, bound by genetic command, but he had never believed them true. Now the truth stood before him in the form of a starving girl. "That's why they want you," he said slowly. "The council fears you." Seraphine nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "They destroyed my house to erase the crown, but they could not erase me. And as long as I live, the seal remains alive." Elias ran a hand over his face. The weight of her words pressed down on him. He had thought she was just a starving child in need of kindness. But now he understood. This girl was the key to a war that could change the galaxy. Before he could respond, a sharp whistle cut the air. Shouts echoed. "This way. Check the alleys." Seraphine's face paled. Elias grabbed her wrist. "Move," he ordered. They ran through the narrow passage, footsteps pounding. Behind them the guards surged closer, weapons drawn. Ahead, the flicker of neon lights marked the edge of another district. Elias shoved aside crates, clearing a path. Seraphine stumbled, but he pulled her up, refusing to let her fall. Finally, they burst into an old docking hangar, the air thick with dust. The bay was nearly empty except for a few abandoned shuttles. Elias pulled her behind a rusted hull, both of them panting hard. Seraphine clutched her chest, gasping. "They'll never stop," she whispered. "The whispers of the crown follow me everywhere." Elias gripped her shoulders, his eyes burning with resolve. "Then let them come," he said. "Because now they'll face me too." The old hangar echoed with silence, dust swirling in the pale light. Seraphine leaned against the cold hull of a broken shuttle, her breath ragged. Her cloak hid her torn dress, but her trembling hands could not hide her fear. Elias stood beside her, scanning every shadow, his hand never leaving the hilt of his weapon. "They'll track us here," Seraphine whispered. Her voice cracked. "They always find me. Always." Elias shook his head, firm and steady. "Let them try," he said. His eyes were sharp, his stance ready. He had survived ambushes on war fronts far deadlier than this station, but even so, a heaviness pressed against his chest. This was no ordinary chase. This was a hunt, and the hunters were closing in. Outside the hangar, boots slammed against steel. Orders rang out. "Seal the exits, sweep every sector." The voices grew louder, closing from all sides. Elias cursed under his breath. "They were cornered, Elias," Seraphine whispered, her violet eyes wide. "If they take me, they will break me. They'll use the seal. They'll awaken the fleets." Elias turned toward her, gripping her shoulders tightly. "Listen to me. They won't take you. Not while I'm standing. Before she could reply, the hangar doors burst open. Floodlights cut through the dust. Shadows of armored figures poured in, weapons drawn. The hunters had arrived. Not mere station guards this time, but cloaked agents, faces hidden, their movements precise. Practiced. Killers, not enforcers. The leader stepped forward, his mask gleaming under the lights. His voice carried through a modulator, cold and sharp. "Surrender the girl, soldier, this is not your fight." Elias drew his blade in one hand, his blaster in the other, his voice calm, unwavering. "You'll have to take her over my dead body." The leader tilted his head as if amused. "That can be arranged." With a sharp gesture, the hunters advanced. The hangar erupted in chaos. Elias moved like a storm. His blade cut through the first attacker, sparks flying as steel clashed. His blaster fired clean shots, dropping two more. Seraphine ducked behind a crate, her heart pounding, watching as the human soldier fought like a force of nature. But for every hunter Elias struck down, two more pressed forward. Their coordination was tight, their weapons humming with deadly energy. Elias's armor sparked under the hits, his breath growing heavier. Still, he refused to yield. One hunter broke past him, rushing toward Seraphine. She screamed, scrambling back. The agent reached for her arm, but before he could touch her, something strange happened. Seraphine's eyes flared bright violet. A sound pulsed through the hangar, a deep, resonant tone like a bell ringing through the bones. The hunter froze mid-step, his body stiff, his weapon clattered to the ground, his mask cracked with static. And then he collapsed unconscious. Elias glanced back, stunned. He saw Seraphine trembling, her hand raised as if she had commanded the very air. The glow in her eyes slowly dimmed, but the effect was undeniable. The hunters stopped, uneasy. They whispered among themselves. "The bloodline signal. It's true." Their leader's voice grew sharper. "All units, capture her alive." Elias cursed, firing another shot. He lunged back toward Seraphine, pulling her to her feet. "We move now!" She stumbled, weak from whatever force she had unleashed. But Elias kept her steady, dragging her through the maze of broken shuttles. Blaster bolts cut through the air, sparks raining down. Hunters shouted as they closed in from every side. Seraphine gasped, I can't run anymore." Elias spun, blocking another strike. His blade clashed against an energy staff. He growled, kicking the attacker back. His voice was firm, commanding. "You will, Duchess. You're stronger than you think." They reached the far end of the hangar, only to find another squad waiting. The hunters raised their weapons, cutting off escape. Elias pushed Seraphine behind him, ready to fight until his last breath. The leader stepped forward again, his voice low. "You cannot win, human. Give her to us, and you may yet live." Elias's eyes burned with defiance. "I don't abandon those who trust me." He raised his blade, but before the clash could begin, Seraphine stepped forward, her face pale but her eyes glowing faint again. She lifted her hand, and a symbol shimmered faintly on her skin, an ancient crest of her house. The hunters froze at the sight, their weapons trembling. Her voice was soft but carried like thunder. "I am Seraphine Valora, Duchess of the Aurelian Crown. You dare hunt me like an animal?" The air itself seemed to hum. The crest pulsed brighter. The hunters staggered back, some clutching their helmets, their comms sparking. The bloodline command rippled through their systems, disabling their weapons. The leader growled, struggling to resist. "She cannot be allowed to rise," he hissed. But fear flickered in his stance. Elias seized the moment, firing precise shots, forcing the hunters to retreat. Smoke filled the hangar as their formation broke. They pulled back, dragging their wounded. Their leader's voice echoed in rage, "This isn't over. The crown will fall." And then they were gone, vanishing into the shadows. Silence settled once more. Seraphine collapsed to her knees, shaking. Her glow faded, leaving her drained and pale. Elias rushed to her side, kneeling. He steadied her, his voice soft. "What did you just do?" Her lips trembled. "The seal, it answers me," she whispered. "But it takes everything from me." Elias looked at her, his chest heavy. In that moment he understood fully. This was no fragile orphan. She was the Duchess, hunted because she carried power enough to command fleets and terrify rulers, and now the hunters had seen her rise. The hangar smelled of smoke and burning circuits. The hunters were gone, but their threat remained heavy in the air. Seraphine sat slumped against the old shuttle hull, her face pale. Her breath came in shallow waves, her violet eyes dim after the glow of power. Elias knelt beside her, his armor scorched, his blade streaked with black. He brushed the dust from his gloves, watching her carefully. "You nearly stopped them all," he said quietly. "But it almost killed you." Seraphine's lips trembled. "The seal answers me, but it drains my strength. I can't control it for long." Her voice cracked. "If they take me, they will force me to use it again and again until nothing is left of me." Elias clenched his fists. The idea of her being used like a weapon twisted his stomach. He had seen prisoners broken before, soldiers turned into tools of war, but the thought of this fragile Duchess being reduced to that, he could not allow it. Before he could speak, a sharp beep echoed from his communicator. Elias pulled it from his belt. The council's crest appeared on the cracked screen, followed by a voice he knew well, deep and commanding. "Captain Elias," the voice said, "your presence is required immediately. Reports confirm you have located the fugitive. Stand down and secure her until extraction. Do not resist. This is a direct order." Elias's chest tightened. It was official now, the council knew. They were demanding him to hand her over. His training screamed at him to obey. He was a soldier, bound by oath. Disobedience meant court-martial, exile, or death. He glanced at Seraphine. She looked at him with wide, terrified eyes. Her voice was barely a whisper. "They'll take me, Elias, and you'll never see me again." The communicator crackled again. "Do not be foolish, Captain. She is dangerous, unstable. She threatens galactic peace. Deliver her, and you will be rewarded. Resist, and you will be branded a traitor." Elias shut off the device. The silence that followed was heavier than gunfire. His mind spun. He remembered the faces of comrades who had fallen obeying orders without question. He remembered the civilians who had suffered because the council had chosen power over justice. And now, here was Seraphine, alone, hunted, stripped of her crown, yet carrying herself with the dignity of someone born to lead. "Elias," she whispered, her voice trembling, "you don't have to fight for me. I don't want to drag you into my curse. If you walk away now, you'll be safe." He looked at her, really looked, and in her eyes he saw not just fear but strength, resilience, hope. He thought of how he had first found her, crouched in the shadows, eating scraps like an animal, and how even then, beneath the dirt and fear, he had seen something more, something unbreakable. "No," Elias said firmly. "I don't walk away. Not from you." Seraphine's lips parted, shock flickering in her face. "But the council." "To hell with the council." Elias cut in, his voice sharp with conviction. "I swore an oath to protect the innocent, and you are innocent, Duchess. They see you as a pawn, but I see you for who you are." Tears burned in Seraphine's eyes. She lowered her head, her hands clutching the cloak tightly. For years she had been hunted, betrayed, abandoned. But this human soldier who owed her nothing was choosing her over his own life. From the shadows of the hangar, a faint sound stirred. Hidden microphones, spies listening. The council already knew his answer. The communicator on his belt flickered again, the voice colder now. "Captain Elias, your refusal is noted. You are hereby relieved of duty. Effective immediately. You are branded a deserter and enemy of the council. Hunters are en route. You cannot escape." Elias exhaled slowly. His rank, his career, his reputation, all gone in a single breath. Yet, strangely, he felt lighter, as though a chain had broken from his neck. He looked at Seraphine, her face filled with sorrow. "You've given up everything," she whispered. "No," Elias corrected, his eyes steady. "I've chosen something worth more." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then Seraphine, leaned forward, her forehead resting lightly against his shoulder, her voice soft, fragile. "Why do you do this for me?" Elias's answer came from deep within, simple and true. "Because when I looked at you, I didn't see a fugitive. I didn't see a dog eating scraps. I saw a duchess, and I'll fight for that truth, even if the whole galaxy denies it." Seraphine's tears fell freely now, soaking into the fabric of his armor. Her heart, long burdened by grief and loneliness, felt something it hadn't in years: hope. But their moment of quiet was shattered by the echo of marching boots, hunters again pouring into the station. This time not a small unit, but dozens, an entire squad. Their leader's voice roared through the comms. "Elias, this is your last chance. Surrender the girl or die where you stand." Elias rose, drawing his blade, his eyes burned with unshakable fire. "Then we die standing," he muttered. Seraphine looked at him, trembling, torn between fear and courage, and then, slowly, she stood beside him, her thin frame straight, her violet eyes glowing faint again. She wiped her tears, and for the first time she did not look like a hunted girl. She looked like a duchess reclaiming her crown. Together, they faced the storm that was coming. The hangar shook with the sound of boots, armored hunters pouring in from every side. Their floodlights cut through the shadows, weapons raised, orders echoed through comms. "Secure the target. Kill the traitor!" Elias stood tall, blade in one hand, blaster in the other. His chest rose steady with every breath. He knew the odds. He knew they would not let either of them leave alive. But fear never touched his face. His eyes burned with something stronger: resolve. Beside him, Seraphine pulled herself straight. Her cloak slipped back, revealing her torn dress and tangled silver hair. She looked fragile, yet when her violet eyes lifted, they burned with a fire that silenced even the whispers of the hunters. The leader of the hunters stepped forward, his mask gleaming. Duchess Seraphine Valora, his modulated voice sneered. "Your crown is ash, your house erased. You are nothing." Seraphine's lips trembled, but then she lifted her chin. Her voice, though soft, carried like thunder across the hangar. "I am the daughter of House Valora, Duchess of the Aurelian Crown. You can erase my name from records, you can burn my home, but you cannot erase who I am." The hunters shifted uneasily. The bloodline signal still echoed faintly from her, a hum in the air that made their weapons flicker. Elias stepped forward, his voice sharp. "You'll have to get through me first." The leader raised his hand. "So be it. Kill them both." The hangar erupted. Blaster fire lit the air. Elias moved like a storm, deflecting bolts with his blade, firing clean shots into the enemy line. Sparks rained from walls. Smoke thickened as crates exploded. Seraphine ducked behind him, her body trembling. But something inside her shifted. She remembered her father's voice, steady and commanding. "A crown is not jewels, my child. It is the weight of protecting those who stand with you." She rose, her violet eyes glowing brighter than ever before. A faint crest burned on her skin. The seal of Aurelia. The air vibrated, a deep hum rolling through the hangar. Hunters froze mid-step, some clutching their helmets as static fried their comms. Their weapons flickered and powered down. The leader cursed. "Resist her! She's weak! She cannot hold it!" But Seraphine's voice rang clear, echoing through the hangar. "I am not weak. I am Seraphine Valora, Duchess of Aurelia, and I command you to stand down." The seal flared. A wave of force swept across the hangar, knocking hunters to their knees. Some collapsed, unable to resist the bloodline command coded into their very systems. Elias turned, his eyes wide, watching her. She stood tall, her silver hair glowing in the light, her small frame suddenly filled with the dignity of a queen. For a moment he forgot the battle. He saw not the starving girl who once ate scraps in the shadows, but the Duchess rising before him. The leader staggered, his mask sparking. He roared, in fury, charging forward with his blade. Elias met him halfway. Their weapons clashed with a blinding flash. Steel screamed against steel. Sparks rained around them as they fought, each strike heavy with rage and defiance. "You throw your life. Away for her. The leader snarled. For a fallen house. For a ghost. Elias's blade pressed against his voice steady. She is no ghost. She is the future. With a final strike, Elias disarmed the leader, sending his blade clattering across the floor. The hunter staggered back. Seraphine raised her hand, the crest burning bright. The leader froze, his body trembling as the seal bound him in place, his mask cracked, sparks exploding. Then he fell to his knees, powerless, the remaining hunters, seeing their commander fall, broke. Some fled. Others collapsed under the weight of Seraphine's command. Within moments the hangar was silent, save for the hiss of burning wires. Seraphine swayed, the glow fading from her eyes. Elias caught her before she fell, holding her steady. Her voice was faint, but her words carried strength. I'm still here, Elias smiled, though his chest ached with exhaustion. Yes, Duchess, you are. For the first time in years, Seraphine let herself breathe fully. Her crown was gone, her palace reduced to dust. But in that moment she was not defeated. She was alive, and she was not alone. Elias helped her to her feet. Together they stepped past the fallen hunters. The hangar doors lay open, and beyond them stretched the vastness of the stars. Seraphine looked at the galaxy before her, the endless void filled with promise and danger alike. Her voice trembled, but carried with dignity. They tried to erase me, but they failed. My house may be go,